It's great for having you this day, and then welcome on board. My name is Raki Kardiman. I will lead this short question and answer sessions, especially for you, special for you. Okay. Before that, thanks to your presentations. The course you showed to us was very great and useful to all of us. Something that we should bear in mind whenever the schools, universities, and other educational institutions will reach a better student quality. That is what we need in Indonesia, to be honest, and also other countries in the developing countries. We need that. So related to the course you showed to us, there are 4 questions from the audience that will be very happy if you kind to answer the questions.
Sure.
So yeah, you will see the question in the monitor on the monitor, so then you can answer that directly, please.
Okay.
Okay.
So the first question.
Yeah.
Okay? Do you want to go ahead and read it, or do you want me to?
Yeah. Okay. I will read it for you. So this is about how do we build reading habits for students? Because earlier you was discussing reading skills, which is science learning. So reading habits. This is about reading habits. How to improve their motivation to read something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
My suggestion would be, just like when I talked about writing, the key for us when we ask students to use the writing would be that the writing is ultimately used to answer a question. And so everything we do with our students revolves around the students answering a question about nature, right? And so everything we do to build our science learning experiences is framed around questions, and ideally questions that the students really authentically want to answer to help them understand something in nature better. So we would argue with writing, we want the students to be writing about things that they are developing an understanding of because it's helping them answer their question. And I would argue that we would want the same thing to be true about reading, that rather than framing the reading that they're doing in their class around just doing the reading to complete an assignment or to provide background information that's general information, what we would always try to do is set up a situation in the classroom where the students are doing the reading because it's authentically helping them understand and answer their question. And so they're, all of the literacy skills that you would build in a learning environment, all of the terminology use and the vocabulary use that goes along with reading, and any reading strategies that you might utilize, even multimodal communication reading strategies of trying to, when do I look at the chart? When do I look at the table? How do I tie all that together? The most important thing we would always argue is that the reading is being done as a tool to help the student understand and answer their question. And if you can frame the use of the reading around that, that's going to be more beneficial to the student, and therefore they're going to be more likely to engage in that and then use that reading to build their conceptual understanding. So as the instructor, you know that when they are engaging with these questions, they're building conceptual understanding around targeted concepts that you think are important for them to understand. But with the student, in their mind, as they are engaging in the learning, they feel like they are answering these questions that they're really, truly interested in. And the reading is helping them do that. That would be our key for reading, for writing, for speaking, for listening, any literacy skill that you use in a science classroom. The idea would be they're clarifying their understanding, they're building their understanding, they're answering their own questions through the use of these different literacy skills.
Yeah, thank you,
Mhm.
Professor, for your response. I can say something about our behavior in Indonesia, right? This is about Indonesia.
Sure.
This is a developing country, and I can say that we don't like reading, right? We don't like reading, but we like
Mhm.
watching video and something like
Mhm.
that. And
Yes.
so that's why we have less literacy about science, something like that. The 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 questions about how to improve, how to build, how to engage them. Okay, read this, read this, read this. We have to force them in the class, or we have to push them hardly or something like that. Is that good technique in education?
If we can, we would always hope that the push or the drive for the understanding would result from the students feeling like whatever I'm learning is relevant. It is, and so I don't have any problem with, when we set up our units and somebody asked a question about, what would this look like? What would an actual implementation of this sort of technique look like? We would always have some initial experience that starts the unit of study or starts the whatever topic you're going to deal with for the next couple of days or weeks or however long it would be. There's always some experience at the beginning of that provokes some curiosity, that promotes the students' interest, gets them enthusiastic about it. That could be, watching something. That could be going outside and seeing something. That could be, a conversation that the teacher initiates based on lots of different things to get the interest and the excitement and enthusiasm there. So it doesn't have to, in my mind, it doesn't have to start with the reading. It can start with something else. But what we would hope would happen would be that the students, as they're legitimately trying to answer their questions about whatever they're curious about, because you've set up a situation in your classroom to promote this curiosity, that then they will find these sources of information that are helpful to them, or the teacher may help find some sources of information that they can then read to clarify, to build their understanding, to make sense of things as they continue to work. So we would hope in our approach, we would hope that the drive to understand, the drive to satisfy that curiosity that the student might have about a question in nature would lead them to do some reading, or maybe communicate with others via writing to try to build those skills as a function of helping them answer their question. And so we're always trying to frame that work. Now, I agree with you. I mean, it's the same thing here. We don't necessarily have students who just enjoy reading to read, but if we can capture their enthusiasm, their interest, their curiosity, it gives a context for the reading that maybe is a little more helpful.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for
Yeah.
this one. And in my class, I have 4 or 5 class, and then I always say that according to many experts, they say that one question will improve your knowledge. But the question is one question, but the question is how to ask something, how to be curious, something like that. And
Right.
many students in here something like just lazy to think something. Okay, there's no curiosity. How to
Yeah.
improve knowledge if you don't have curiosity?
Right. Right.
So
Right.
maybe you know how to teach us as a teacher how to build curiosity among students, something like that.
Yeah. And sometimes we have to ask the students, what is it that you're curious about? What would you like to know about? And we don't, we can build towards that. But if you have a general topic or a broad topic, and then you say, now what aspects of this are good, give some choices. Here's 2 or 3 things that are related to this topic. Which of these is of most interest to you? Let's go that route. And then, the hard part is you're not going to get agreement from your students. But I agree with you. I think that curiosity is key in building that. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. The next question, please.
Mhm.
Okay, this is about the results. Not
Yeah.
optimal somehow.
Yeah.
So let me
Yeah. Yeah.
Your response, please.
Yeah, sure. Number one, I will acknowledge that this idea that we have our approach in which we want students to answer their own questions, to come up with their own investigations, to collect their own data, make sense of that data, make claims backed with evidence. That is not something that happens quickly. That's not something that you can say on day 2 of your class. All of a sudden, the students are going to do that. We advocate that starts with very young students. That students are in grade 1 or grade 2 are starting to go through this idea of we're going to try to answer our questions. We're going to set up these investigations. We're going to collect data. We're going to try to do things in systematic ways. We don't necessarily use that terminology, but we'll have really young students use the word claim and the word evidence and talk about those things. So it takes time. I will absolutely acknowledge that it takes time. And the first couple of experiences, especially as a teacher, you might be a little frustrated. I would argue that that's a very positive thing. I think one of the most beneficial aspects for the students to learn about this process is when they come up with an investigation that really isn't that beneficial, that it's an investigation that they think will allow them to collect some data that will make some sense, but it really doesn't do much good. And then the analysis of the investigation, why it didn't provide them the information that they were hoping, why it wasn't as effective, that can be one of the more powerful learning experiences for the students. And the same thing with the analysis of data or the development of claims or the discussion about evidence. We really emphasize that idea of critique. How are you critiquing each other's claims and evidence? How are you critiquing each other's investigations? How are the students involved in that conversation? And using those, especially early investigations that aren't very strong, or the early claims that really don't have much evidence, to use those as examples of, okay, now how can we strengthen this claim? How can we create a better investigation? How do we, and so it's not optimal and it's not as efficient. It doesn't happen as quickly as most of the time I would like, or any of us would like. But I do think that sort of being open as the instructor to the fact that the first couple of times I utilize this sort of approach, my students may not be real involved in the discussion and the argument, or my students might not create a really thorough, standardized investigation that is clearly related to their question. And the process of discussing why it wasn't as effective, I think, can be very beneficial. The other thing we talk a lot about is, yes, we want the students to have the opportunity to develop an investigation, come up with their own claims and their own evidence. But at some point, you also have to have a conversation about the fact that other people have studied this, and other people that are experts in this area have studied this. So let's compare our findings to what the expert sources say. That's where the reading can come in, is if the students have these claims, and then you say, now let's see what other people have to say, and let's compare our claims with theirs. I think that's really powerful as well.
Yeah, you're right. Do we need to involve statistic to evaluate? And at the end, we can say this is not optimal. This is optimal. We measure and we monitor the quality of students through all the time. Like, because I also interested in statistics, our program actually, And I also interested to study about social development, especially in education, right?
Yes.
In many universities in Indonesia, especially the little bit low middle low middle quality university, to be honest, and then there is no monitoring system about the quality of student, right?
Right.
There is no evaluation, there is no data,
Yeah.
so we don't know what's the quality, what student we produce or something like that. So what is the suggestion about that?
What in terms of monitoring the quality? Can you clarify the question again? Monitor the quality of how the students are
Yeah,
creating.
the quality of the students we produce in university or school,
Sure.
something like that, because we don't have
Yeah.
data how to measure equality, what parameter
Right.
we use.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we will sometimes use, we'll use standardized measures of their conceptual understanding to determine if they are building appropriate conceptual understanding, if their content understanding is accurate and thorough. I think one of the things we've really moved towards here with the next generation science standards in the United States has been this idea of creating rubrics, matrices, things like that to evaluate the use of process skills. That it's not just how do we evaluate their content understanding and their conceptual understanding, which is important, but how do we also evaluate their ability to the student's ability to develop a fair test, to control variables, to determine the number of trials that they need to build claims that are backed with evidence, and I think that's where that's more challenging. That's more in depth. That requires more formative assessment along the way. It requires more monitoring, but I do think ultimately that can build a more robust and well-rounded evaluation of what students understand and are able to do. But we certainly haven't come up with the perfect way to do that either.
Yeah.
That's not an easy thing to do.
Yes, of course, it's hard.
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question, please. Okay, this is questions. What do you think about education paradigms nowadays? So that the learning process must be changed, and why the integration of STEMs needed?
Right. I think I would argue, I hope, in at least in my classrooms, we're moving away from this idea that science is only about the accumulation of facts, that it's only about this list of information that other people have already determined and figured out, and that what science learning should be is let's just memorize those facts, let's remember what other people have already determined. I hope we're moving away from that, and I think maybe we're living through a time where it becomes important to realize that what science really is about is trying to answer questions and interpreting data, making sense of data, using that data to come up with claims and back that up with evidence, but continually being open to new data and new information and making sense of that, and being willing to adjust our explanations as we encounter new information and new data. I don't think, the way I learned science when I was in high school and even when I was in college and university was somebody older than me stood up in front of me and told me everything that they already knew, and I wrote it down. And I never really had a chance to develop that understanding myself, to engage in those, right? And so not only in my mind was that not necessarily the most effective way for me to learn it, but it also kind of communicated to me as a student that that's what science is. It's already established knowledge that just gets passed down from one generation to the next. I didn't have many opportunities as a learner to actually try to develop my own understanding, to see how challenging that can be, to see how I get conflicting information and I have to make sense of that. And I have to debate and discuss and negotiate and communicate with other people. I didn't get to do that. And so it was harder for me to get a true sense of, in my mind, what science is, how science learning progresses, in the real world with, as scientists are developing their understanding. Some of your other speakers, your keynote speakers, the understanding they developed, it wasn't just because someone told them this is what's happening. They had to investigate it. They had to make sense of the data. They had to, and so this is a long way of me answering this question, but to me, this is why it comes back to, you need to think about, science learning as an idea of integrated STEM, where to truly understand nature and how it works and answer our questions, we need to understand the science concepts. We need to understand the practices of science. We need to utilize math in a way that helps us understand the relationships. We need to be able to apply our learning in engineering situations. We need to be able to use technology to develop the understanding. Like, all of that comes together. And again, that's more challenging. That's not necessarily as efficient and kind of neat and tidy, but it does I think, gives us a chance to maybe be a little more accurate and help students understand not only the concepts, but also this is sort of the nature of science. This is how science progresses. That would be the way we view what we're trying to do in our classroom.
Yeah, you're right. I agree. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I am a conservationist, actually. Biologist conservationist.
Mhm.
Concerns about biodiversity and then forest laws, restoration.
Yep.
But I think that what we did in the field is not enough.
Yeah.
We should go to university teaching people, say to the young generations about global warming, about forest laws, about something like that. Then we need teaching technique, teaching methodology. What the best method we have to do to teach that? Okay, maybe.
Yeah. I think communication is such a key aspect of the education process, and it's not just, here's what I already know and I want to tell somebody else, but using the communication itself to develop our understanding and develop our knowledge, I think.
Okay, so we have last question for you. This is about ASIS implementation. Can you show us one example of ASIS implementation that already did before? Sure. So
the classes that I normally teach are for people who are going to be teachers. So when I teach this, and I teach science, I'm teaching it to people who are eventually going to be teachers. So when I teach a methods course for people who are going to be teaching at the, K through 5 level, they're going to be elementary teachers, I will engage them in these sorts of experiences. So what we will do, if we're going to discuss, say, the idea of structure and function, right? I want to help them understand the relationship between structure and function in biology. Well, we will start out with some experience, like I said. It might be measuring reaction times for something that they would be doing. That there's a computer simulation or something that uses technology that can measure reaction times. And then we will let the students come up with, how would you impact somebody's reaction? Like, what variables do you think would impact reaction time? They come up with their own questions, they come up with their own investigations, and they try to come up with these claims about what variables impact reaction time. And then the next question is why. And so now they have to start developing explanations about how does your nervous system work, what's happening when there's when a reaction time is being measured, what cells are involved, what processes within those cells are involved, and they keep getting a deeper and a deeper and deeper explanation about reaction time that eventually we can link to this idea of structure and function by looking at the particular cells, the way that they're built, and the way that they function to make this case. But it all starts because they're trying to answer these questions about reaction. So the students don't even necessarily, at the beginning, feel like, hey, we're doing structure and function. What they feel like is we're answering these questions about this reaction time scenario and how do we speed it up or slow it down, how we impact it, and then you sort of build the biology on for the explanation as they're answering their questions. And they're consistently engaged in this process of, I'm making a claim, I'm backing it up with evidence from the investigation and the data that I collected. That's what we're trying to get them.
Perfect.
That was a pretty quick example, but that's what we're shooting. That's what we're trying to do.
That's what we want to implement in this country. Maybe we can talk about it in another opportunity.
Absolutely.
Meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We can contact you. We can call you again later.
You sure can.
Yeah,
absolutely.
this our problem now is about time, so we have to finish our room.
Yep.
And then I will say thank you very much for your time and for your support and to attend in this conference. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
See you then.
Take care.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Prof. Mark, this is certificate from us for you.
Oh, thank you.
We will send you through email.
Yeah. That would be great.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Have a great conference. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome.
Okay, thank you from Professor Mike Timard and thank you kepada Pak Reki tadi yang udah memandu diskusi Q&A. Oke, karena kita sudah memasuki waktu untuk parallel session, silakan kepada seluruh Bapak Ibu sekalian untuk masuk dan join ke breakout room yang telah kita sediakan. So please join to breakout room sesuai dengan format yang telah kita sediakan. Ya, oke, silakan untuk masuk dan join. Dan sekadar mengingatkan to help us cross new. The examples of format name is room or parallel group _register as _name _institution. Example 1 _participant _Relsa Sugika _UNP. And then if you lose your connection, please enter your Zoom and rename the Zoom with so ladies and gentlemen, please you're going to breakout room.